Jack Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he packed the last of his clothes into the standard-issue blue duffel bag. The small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, felt emptier than usual. A construction worker with 15 years of experience wasn't the type of person normally chosen for interstellar diplomatic missions. Yet here he was, preparing to be the first human to live on an alien space station. Just a regular guy, he muttered to himself, zipping the bag closed. That's what they wanted, someone who wasn't a scientist or a soldier. The government officials who had selected him explained that the aliens wanted to meet everyday humans. They were curious about the species that had developed on what they called high-gravity death world. Jack found that description funny. Earth was just home to him. The next morning, Jack stood on the landing pad, watching the alien shuttle gleam in the early sunlight. It looked like a massive teardrop made of copper and blue glass. A small crowd had gathered behind the security fence, reporters, government officials, and some of Jack's coworkers from the construction site. "Good luck up there, Miller," shouted his friend Gary from beyond the fence. Jack waved, trying to look more confident than he felt. The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a ramp that extended to the ground. Two figures appeared. They were clearly not human. The taller alien had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Its four arms moved with careful precision as it walked down the ramp. The second alien was shorter, with golden scales covering its body and large eyes that blinked sideways. "Mr. Miller," the blue alien said in perfect English, "I am Ambassador Kriala of the Zalaxian Confederation. We welcome you as Earth's representative." Jack stepped forward and extended his hand as he'd been trained. "Nice to meet you, Ambassador. I'm just Jack. No need for the mister." The alien looked at Jack's hand with obvious confusion before remembering the briefing on human customs. Kriala extended one of its four hands and carefully shook Jack's. "This is Chief Science Officer Vixner," the ambassador said, gesturing to the golden scaled alien. Vexner made a complicated gesture with its three-fingered hands. "We are most interested in studying a species that evolved in such harsh conditions. Your planet's gravity would crush most sentient life in our confederation." Jack smiled. "Well, I'm happy to help however I can." The journey to the space station took 3 days in the alien vessel. Jack spent most of that time learning about the different species he would meet. Besides the Zalaxians, there were the bird-like Avarians with their colorful feathers and hollow bones, the tentacled MoreBest, who moved like flowing water, and the crystalline Physians, who communicated through light pulses. All these species evolved on low-gravity worlds, Vexner explained as they approached the massive space station. The standard gravity on our station is approximately half of Earth's. You may find yourself bouncing if you're not careful. Jack looked out the viewport at the enormous structure growing larger as they approached. The space station Harmony Point looked like a giant wheel with spokes connecting to a central hub. Lights twinkled across its surface like stars. "It's beautiful," Jack said. Kriala made a sound like gentle bells, which Jack had learned was their version of pleased laughter. "We are glad you appreciate it. It is home to over 20,000 beings from across the Confederation." When they docked and the doors opened, Jack took his first step onto the alien station. Immediately, he felt the difference in gravity. It was like walking after several beers. Everything felt too easy, too light. He carefully controlled his movements, remembering his training about low-gravity environments. A group of aliens waited in the docking bay. Jack recognized representatives from each major species from his briefings. The Avarian's feathers rippled. In blues and golds, the MoreBest's tentacles swayed gracefully. The Physians glinted like walking diamonds. "Welcome to Harmony Point," said a tall Avarian, spreading its wings slightly in greeting. "I am Station Director Peltic." Jack smiled and gave a small bow. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here." As Jack followed the welcoming committee through the station, he noticed many aliens stopping to stare at him. Some took steps back as he passed. Others whispered to each other. "They are simply curious," Ambassador Kriala explained. "Many have never seen a high-gravity species before. Your muscle density and bone structure are quite impressive to them." Jack nodded, trying not to feel like a zoo exhibit. The corridors were wider and taller than would be normal on Earth, designed to accommodate the various alien physiologies. The walls gleamed with a pearly substance that wasn't quite metal or plastic. After a tour of the main areas, they arrived at what would be Jack's quarters. The room was spacious with furniture that seemed too delicate for human use. "We have attempted to modify this space for your comfort," Vexener said. "If anything is unsuitable, please inform us." Jack tested the bed carefully, worried it might break under his weight. It held, though it felt too soft. "This will be fine, thank you." That evening, a welcome reception was held in one of the station's large gathering spaces. Jack met dozens of aliens, trying his best to remember the proper greetings for each species. He noticed a group of younger-looking Zalaxians watching him from across the room, whispering among themselves. One of them eventually approached. "Hello, Human Jack. I am Engineer Zodeler. We are most curious about your species' adaptations. Is it true you can lift more than twice your body weight in your planet's gravity?" Jack smiled. "Some humans can. I'm just average. On a good day. At the construction site, I might lift about 100 kilos when I need to." The young Zalaxians looked at each other with what Jack interpreted as excitement. "Fascinating," Zodeler said. "We have many questions about how humans function in different environments." Later, as Jack was escorted back to his quarters, he didn't notice Zodeler and 5 other young engineers huddled around a control panel. Mira's room. They waited until Jack had entered and the door closed behind him. "Are you sure this is safe?" one of them asked. "Zot single quotes." Lar nodded, adjusting settings on the panel. "The human's medical files indicate they can tolerate much higher gravity than this. We're only doubling the gravity in his quarters to Earth normal. It's just a small prank to see how he reacts. Imagine his surprise when he wakes up feeling heavy." The young engineers giggled as they finished the adjustments. The gravity in Jack's quarters would now match Earth's, twice the station standard. They expected to find him calling for help in the morning, pinned to his bed by what would feel like crushing weight to most station residents. What they didn't expect was that for the first time since leaving Earth, Jack would finally get a good night's sleep, comfortable in the familiar embrace of his homeworld's gravity. The next morning, Jack woke up feeling better than he had since leaving Earth. He stretched in the bed that no longer felt too soft, enjoying the familiar weight of his body. Something felt right that hadn't before, but he couldn't quite place. He got up, did a set of push-ups as part of his morning routine, and headed to the shower. Meanwhile, outside his quarters, Zodeler and the other young engineers gathered early. They whispered excitedly as they waited to see the results of their prank. "The humans should be calling for emergency help by now," said one engineer named Trelvis. "No non-Earth species can function properly at that gravity." Zodeler checked the readings on his tablet. The gravity is still at Earth normal. He hasn't adjusted it back. Perhaps he's still asleep, pinned to the bed. The door to Jack's quarters slid open. The engineers quickly pretended to be working on a nearby panel. To their complete shock, Jack walked out looking refreshed and energetic. "Good morning," Jack said with a smile, noticing the group. "Nice to see some early risers like." The engineers stared at him, their 4 eyes widening in disbelief. Jack was not only standing, but moving normally in what should have been crushing gravity to them. "Is something wrong?" Jack asked, noticing their strange expressions. Zodeler stepped forward, his blue skin turning a shade darker with what Jack would later learn was embarrassment. "Human Jack, I must confess something," Zodeler said, his voice shaking slightly. "We played what we thought would be a harmless prank. We adjusted the gravity in your quarters to match Earth's gravity." Jack's eyebrows went up. "Really? That explains it. I slept like a baby last night." The bed finally felt right. The engineers looked at each other in confusion. "You are not injured?" Trelvis asked. "You can move in such heavy gravity." Jack laughed. "That's normal gravity for me. Actually, I should thank you. It's the first time I've felt normal since I got here." Word of the incident spread quickly through the station. By midday, Ambassador Kriala had called Jack to a meeting with several senior officials, including Chief Science Officer Vexener and Station Director Peltic. "We must apologize for the actions of our junior engineers," Kriala said, all four, hands moving in gestures of regret. Jack shook his head. "No harm done. Actually, it was nice feeling Earth's gravity again." Vexener leaned forward, golden scales catching the light. "This presents an interesting opportunity for scientific study, if you are willing. We have never had a chance to observe a high-gravity species in different gravitational environments." Station Director Peltic's feathers ruffled with interest. "Perhaps a demonstration in our recreational center? The gravity can be adjusted in different sections for various species' comfort." Jack nodded. "Sure, I'd be happy to show you what humans can do." That afternoon, the station's recreational center was filled with curious aliens from all species. One section had been cleared, with gravity controls set up to allow for various demonstrations. Jack stood in the center of the cleared area, wearing simple exercise clothes provided by the station. Around him, aliens watched from a safe distance, murmuring to each other. "We will begin at station standard gravity, which is half of Earth's," Vexener announced to the crowd, then gradually increased to show human capabilities. Jack started with basic movements, jumping, running in place, and doing push-ups. Even in the low gravity, the aliens were impressed by his strength. "Now we will increase to Earth normal." "Gravity," Vexener said, adjusting the controls. Jack felt the familiar weight settle over him as the gravity doubled. The watching aliens gasped as they saw the invisible force press down. To them, this level of gravity would make movement nearly impossible. But Jack continued exercising normally, now doing jumping jacks and squats. "This feels like home," he, Sayid, a Fuzzian scientist near the front, made. A series of light pulses that the translator converted to. The pressure would cause microfractures in our crystalline structure at this gravity. "How do your bones not break?" Jack smiled. "Human bones are dense and strong. We evolved with this gravity, so our bodies are built for it." "Let's increase the gravity further," suggested Vexener. "To 1.5 times Earth normal, if you consent," Jack nodded. "Go ahead." The gravity increased again. Jack felt the extra weight push down on him. It was like wearing a heavy backpack on a construction site. He had to work harder, but it wasn't impossible. He did several lunges and then a few push-ups, slower than before. The aliens watched in stunned silence. To them, this gravity would be completely debilitating. The Avarian's wings would be useless. The Morneps would be flattened blobs. The Fuzzians would risk shattering. "This is similar to carrying equipment on a job site," Jack explained as he stood up, a light sweat on his forehead. "Not comfortable, but manageable." Zodeler, who had been permitted to attend as part of his punishment, called out, "Can humans tolerate even more?" Jack grinned. "Why not? Can you turn it up more? This is just getting interesting." Vexener looked concerned, but adjusted the controls again, raising the gravity to 1.75 times. Earth normal. Jack felt the crushing weight and had to brace himself. His movements became deliberate and careful. He managed to do one push-up, struggling, to push himself back up. When he stood, he was breathing heavily. "Now this," he said between breaths, "is a real workout." The demonstration was cut short when a group of Salaxian military officials entered the recreation center. Their leader, a tall blue-skinned Zalaxian with elaborate markings, approached Ambassador Kriala. "We heard about the humans' gravity resistance," the military leader said. "Commander Dralvok requests a private conversation with the Earth representative." Kriala looked uncomfortable. This was meant to be a scientific demonstration, not a military assessment. Jack, still catching his breath as the gravity was returned to station normal, noticed the tension. He walked over, feeling light again. "In the low gravity, is everything okay?" he asked. Commander Drelvik looked Jack up and down with all four eyes. "Fascinating capabilities you have demonstrated, human. My department has many questions about how your species might perform in various environments." Jack sensed something in the commander's tone that made him uneasy. The military interest felt different from the scientist's curiosity. "I'm just an average guy," Jack said carefully. "Nothing special by Earth standards." "Yet what is average on Earth seems extraordinary here," Drelvak replied. "We should discuss this further." As Jack looked around at the crowd of aliens still watching him with amazement, he realized that his normal human strength had unexpectedly turned him into something else entirely on this station. A curiosity, a scientific marvel, and now, potentially, a military interest. The simple construction worker from Ohio had suddenly become Earth's strongest ambassador, whether he was ready for it or not. News about the gravity-defying human spread quickly throughout Harmony Point. Within a day, Jack could hardly walk through the station without aliens stopping to stare or ask questions. Some even requested to touch his arm muscles, which he politely declined. 3 days after the gravity demonstration, a human shuttle arrived at the station. Jack was called to the docking bay to greet the new arrivals. "We didn't expect more humans so soon," Ambassador Kriela said as they waited for the airlock to open. "Your home government seemed concerned after learning about the gravity incident," Jack shrugged. "I told them it was no big deal in my messages home." The airlock door slid open to reveal a woman in a sharp gray suit. She had short blonde hair and a serious expression that softened when she saw Jack. "Mr. Miller, I'm Susan Clark, Earth's diplomatic representative," she said, extending her hand. "When we heard aliens were experimenting with your gravity, Washington nearly had a fit." Behind Susan stood another woman with curly red hair and glasses, carrying several cases of equipment. "And this is Dr. Liz Gordon, exobiologist," Susan continued. "She's very interested in your gravity adventures." Liz smiled brightly, absolutely fascinated. The physiological implications are enormous. Jack led the women to the conference room, where station officials waited. As they walked, he explained everything that had happened. "So they thought doubling gravity would leave you helpless?" Susan asked, shaking her head. "To be fair," Liz said, "their bodies would be crushed under Earth gravity. It's like if we suddenly found ourselves in triple our normal gravity." In the conference room, Susan quickly took control of the meeting. "While we appreciate scientific curiosity, experimenting with environmental conditions without consent is concerning." Kriala's 4 hands made apologetic gestures. "We assure you, the young engineers have been disciplined, but the results have been scientifically valuable." Liz placed one of her cases on the table and opened it to reveal scientific equipment. "With your permission, I'd like to explain some things about human physiology. It might help prevent misunderstandings." 4. The next hour, Liz gave a presentation about how Earth's gravity shaped human evolution. She showed scans of Jack's bone density, muscle structure, and cardiovascular system, comparing them to alien physiology. "Humans evolved under constant pressure," Liz explained. "Our bones are dense to support our weight. Our muscles are powerful to move against gravity. Our hearts are strong to pump blood upward against gravitational pull. The aliens watched in fascination as Liz displayed 3D models of human organ systems. What appears over-engineered in your environment is perfectly adapted for ours, she continued. Jack isn't special by human standards. He's simply a normal human using the body Earth gave him. Vexner leaned forward, golden scales gleaming under the lights. If an average human can function in doubled gravity, what can your exceptional specimens do? Susan and Liz exchanged looks. That information is not relevant to our cultural exchange, Susan said carefully. The meeting was interrupted when Commander Drelvok entered with 2 other military officials. Ambassador, we request time with the humans to discuss defense implications. Drelvok announced. Susan straightened in her chair. Earth is not currently sharing military information. Jack, who had been quiet during the scientific explanations, finally spoke up. Instead of talking about humans as potential weapons, maybe we could focus on something more positive. Drelvok's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Such as? Jack smiled. How about a friendly competition? On Earth, we have events to test strength and endurance. It might be more fun than military talk. Susan looked ready to object, but Liz touched her arm. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Cultural exchange through athletic demonstration. The idea quickly gained support. By the next day, the recreation center had been transformed into a competition arena. Word spread throughout the station, and hundreds of aliens gathered to watch. Jack stood in the center wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts. Beside him, Commander Drelvok had changed into what appeared to be Zalaxian athletic wear, a close-fitting suit with movement sensors. We will compete under Earth's standard gravity, Jack suggested. It's challenging for you, but still allows movement. Drelvok agreed, though some of his confidence seemed to fade when the gravity increased. The competition began with simple tests. Who could jump higher, run faster, and lift more weight. Despite struggling with the gravity, Drelvok performed admirably for his species. His 4 arms gave him advantages in some tests. But in pure feats of strength, Jack dominated without even trying his hardest. For the final challenge, Jack suggested a deadlift lifting a weighted bar from the ground to standing position. This is a classic test of overall body strength, Jack explained to the crowd. Assistants set up a bar with weights that could be adjusted. Drelvok went first, using all 4 arms to attempt lifting a weight Jack had suggested was modest by human standards. The commander struggled, his blue skin darkening with effort, but managed to lift the bar a few inches before dropping it. The crowd murmured in appreciation of the attempt. Then it was Jack's turn. Add more weight, please, Jack requested. The assistants doubled the weight, looking concerned. Jack approached the bar, took a deep breath, and lifted. The weight came up smoothly as he straightened his legs and back. The crowd went completely silent. Several Avarians were so shocked that small feathers molted from their wings and drifted to the floor. That's about what I lift during a normal workout, Jack said, carefully setting the weight down. Drelvok stared at Jack with an expression that mixed admiration with something else, perhaps the first understanding that humans weren't just surviving their death world. They had been shaped by it, strengthened by it. After the competition, Susan and Ambassador Criella met privately while Jack spoke with curious aliens who had endless questions. You must understand, Susan was saying to Criella, how this could be misinterpreted. We don't want Earth viewed primarily for its physical capabilities. Criella made a gesture of agreement. Yet you must understand our fascination. Your species has evolved in conditions that would kill most sentient life in our confederation. The implications are significant. Cultural exchange goes both ways, Susan replied. We have much to learn from your technologies and social structures. And you have things to learn from us beyond our physical traits. As the day ended, Jack found himself sitting with Liz and Zodeler in the station's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. The young engineer had become something of a friend since the gravity prank. "I never meant to cause such a stir," Zodeler said. "I just wanted to see how you would react to Earth gravity." Jack laughed. Sometimes the best discoveries happen by accident. Liz nodded. The gravity difference between our worlds has shaped more than just our bodies. It's shaped how we approach problems, how we build, how we think. As they talked, none of them noticed the small alert flashing on a nearby console. The first warning. Sign of a problem with the station's cargo delivery system. A problem that would soon test just how valuable a human's gravity-forged strength could be. Jack was eating breakfast in the station's dining area when the first warning alarm sounded. The soft chime wasn't particularly alarming, and most aliens barely looked up from their meals. "Just a scheduled cargo delivery," Zodeler explained, joining Jack at his table. "The system alerts us when large ships approach the docking bays." Susan and Liz entered the dining area, both looking refreshed after a week on the station. They had adjusted well to the lower gravity, often commenting on how easy it was to move around. "Morning, Jack," Susan said, sitting down with a cup of what passed for coffee on the station. "I've got good news. The Diplomatic Council is pleased with how things are going. They want to extend our stay by another month." Jack nodded. "Fine. By me." I'm starting to enjoy. A violent shudder ran through the station, cutting him off mid-sentence. This was followed by a much louder alarm, its urgent wailing very different from the gentle alert earlier. "That's not normal," Zodeler said, his blue skin paling to a light azure. All four of his eyes widened as he checked his communication device. The cargo hauler has malfunctioned. It's not slowing down. Another impact rocked the station, harder this time. Plates and cups slid off tables. Several aliens lost their balance and fell. The station's communication system activated. "Attention all residents. We have experienced a collision with an incoming cargo vessel. Please remain calm and proceed to your designated safety areas." Zodeler was receiving rapid updates on his device. "This is bad." The hauler crashed into the power core section. "There's significant damage." Jack felt a sudden change in his body, a familiar heaviness that shouldn't have been there. Is it just me? Or did the gravity just increase? Liz grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. Definitely heavier. Around them, aliens were beginning to struggle. The bird-like Avarians seemed particularly affected, their wings dragging as if suddenly weighted. Station Director Peltick's voice came over the communication system, sounding strained. "The collision has damaged our gravity control systems. Emergency backups are attempting to stabilize, but currently, station gravity has increased to approximately 4 times standard levels. Engineering teams are working on the problem." Jack did a quick calculation. 4 times station standard, that's twice Earth gravity. The dining area had turned chaotic. Many aliens couldn't stand under the increased gravitational pull. The crystalline Physians were completely immobile, afraid that any movement might cause them to fracture. The tentacled Morneps had flattened against the floor like puddles. Susan struggled to her feet, clearly straining, but still functional. "We need to help. Jack, you're the only one who can move relatively normally in this gravity." Zodeler had managed to pull himself into a seated position against the wall, but couldn't stand. The emergency systems should have prevented this gravity increase. Something is very wrong with the power core. Station security officers were attempting to help, but they too were severely hampered by the crushing gravity. Some were crawling along the floor, unable to walk. Jack's communication device beeped with an incoming message. It was Ambassador Kriala. "Jack," the ambassador's voice sounded strained. "We need your assistance urgently. The station's primary power core is severely damaged. The emergency teams cannot reach it under current gravity conditions. Tell me what to do, Jack said, already moving toward the exit. Each step was difficult, like walking with heavy weights strapped to his body, but he could still function. Liz called after him. Jack, be careful. Even for you, this is extreme gravity. Jack made his way through the station corridors, passing aliens who were effectively immobilized. The few who could move were crawling slowly. When he reached the central hub, he found Commander Drelvuk attempting to coordinate response teams via communication devices. Human, Drelvuk acknowledged him, the military leader struggling to remain upright even with support. The situation is critical. The backup gravity controls are in the engineering section, but no one can reach them. A voice called from a nearby console. This is Chief Engineer Alan West. I just arrived on the morning shuttle before the collision. I can talk you through the repairs, but someone needs to physically reach the auxiliary control room. Jack moved to the console. On the screen was a middle-aged man with gray hair and a concerned expression. I'm Jack Miller. I can still move in this gravity. Tell me what to do. Alan nodded. The auxiliary controls are located in maintenance shaft 100 to 7. You'll need to reroute power from the secondary systems and manually override the gravity generators. Drelvuk pulled up a station map on another screen. Here, he said, pointing. With a shaking hand. The fastest route is through these maintenance tunnels. Jack studied the map, memorizing the path. Any other humans on the engineering team who could help? No, Alan replied. Just me, and I'm stuck in the docking bay. The shuttle crew can't even open the doors under this gravity. Susan and Liz had made it to the central hub, moving slowly but determinedly. We'll coordinate from here, Susan said. Liz can help translate any technical terms. Jack nodded and headed toward the maintenance access point. The journey through the narrow tunnels was grueling. Twice Earth's gravity meant every movement required enormous effort. Jack's construction work had built up his strength, but even he was sweating heavily after just a few minutes. How are you doing, Jack? Alan's voice came through his communication device. Like carrying 2 men on my back, Jack grunted, pulling himself along. But I'm moving. As Jack navigated the maintenance shafts, Susan and Liz worked with the alien officials to manage the crisis. Reports were coming in of structural damage throughout the station. Several Phosians had developed stress fractures in their crystalline bodies. The Avarians couldn't move their wings at all. The station wasn't designed to handle this gravity long-term, Kriala explained, the ambassador now confined to a supported chair. If we don't restore normal gravity soon, we risk catastrophic system failures. After 20 minutes of grueling crawling and climbing, Jack reached the auxiliary control room. I'm here. What now? Alan's voice guided him through a series of complex procedures, rerouting power, and bypassing damaged systems. Jack's hands, heavy and clumsy in the increased gravity, struggled with the delicate controls. Almost there, Jack said, connecting the final bypass circuit. Just need to... A loud crash interrupted him as part of the ceiling collapsed. A heavy support beam fell, blocking the manual override lever Jack needed to reach. Jack? Jack, what happened? Alan's worried voice came through the communication device. Jack stared at the fallen beam. Under normal circumstances, it would be challenging to move. Under twice Earth's gravity, it seemed nearly impossible. I need to move a fallen support beam, Jack replied, voice strained. It's blocking the override lever. There was silence for a moment before Alan spoke again. Jack, each of those beams weighs over 200 kilograms. Under double gravity, I know, Jack interrupted. But if I don't move it, what happens to the station? Kriala's voice joined the conversation. Complete. System failure within 2 hours. Possible structural collapse. Jack took a deep breath and positioned himself beside the beam. He squatted down, got his hands underneath it, and braced his legs. "Jack, wait," Liz started to say. With a primal grunt, Jack heaved upward. His muscles screamed in protest, his spine compressed under the enormous weight. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, centimeter by centimeter, the beam began to rise. Now this ... Jack gasped through clenched teeth. ... is finally ... He lifted the beam high enough to clear the lever ... a decent workout. With the beam held shakily above the controls, Jack reached out with one hand and pulled the override lever down. Immediately, the crushing weight began to lessen as the gravity generators reset to emergency backup levels. Jack carefully lowered the beam as the gravity returned to station standard ... all across Harmony Point. Aliens who had been pinned down suddenly found themselves able to move again. The crisis wasn't over. The power core was still damaged, but the immediate danger had passed ... in the auxiliary control room. Jack sat on the floor, breathing heavily, his muscles trembling from the extraordinary exertion. "Jack, are you okay?" Liz's concerned voice came through the communication device. Jack looked at his shaking hands and laughed softly. "Yeah," he replied, "but tomorrow I'm definitely going to be sore." 2 months after the gravity crisis, Jack stood in the observation lounge, watching his replacement shuttle approach Harmony Point. The massive space station, now fully repaired, gleamed in the light of the nearby star. It was time for him to return to Earth. The past weeks had been busy. After Jack's actions saved the station, the attitude of the aliens toward humans had changed dramatically. No longer was he seen as just a curiosity from a high-gravity planet. Now, the construction worker from Ohio was viewed with a mixture of respect, admiration, and a healthy dose of awe. "There you are," Susan said, entering the lounge. "Your shuttle will dock in 20 minutes. All packed?" Jack nodded, patting the same blue duffel bag he'd arrived with. "Ready to go. Hard to believe it's been 3 months." Susan smiled. "You've accomplished more than anyone expected. The Diplomatic Council is thrilled with the new alliance proposals." Since the crisis, the Zalaxian Confederation had been eager to establish stronger ties with Earth. What had started as a simple cultural exchange had evolved into serious discussions about trade, technology sharing, and mutual defense. Liz joined them, carrying her tablet. "I just finished my final report. The scientific community back home is going to be busy for years with all this data." The door slid open again as Zaudler entered, followed by Ambassador Kriala, Chief Science Officer, Vixner, and Commander Drelvok. Even Station Director Peltic had come to say goodbye, his colorful feathers carefully groomed for the occasion. "We came to escort you to the docking bay," Kriala said. All 4 of the ambassador's hands held small gift boxes. "And to present you with some tokens of our appreciation." Jack felt a little embarrassed by the attention. "I just did what anyone would have done." Drelvok made a sound that the translator interpreted as respectful disagreement. "No one else could have done what you did. Our strongest warriors were helpless in that gravity. The repair crews found that you bent the support beam when you lifted it," Vexner added, golden scales catching the light. "Our engineers are still trying to understand how that was physically possible." They walked together through the station. Corridors. Many aliens stopped to bow or make their species gestures of respect as Jack passed. Some of the Fuzzians lit up with pulses of light in patterns that Jack had learned gratitude. In the 2 months since the crisis, new terms had entered the aliens' vocabulary. Scientists now referred to Miller's resilience when discussing adaptation to harsh environments. Engineering teams used Earth Standard as a measure of structural integrity under stress. When they reached the docking bay, Jack was surprised to find it filled with aliens from all species on the station. A formal ceremony had been arranged. Without his knowledge, Peltic stepped forward, wings slightly spread in a formal posture. Before you depart, we wish to present you with the Confederation's highest civilian honor, the Star of Resilience. Never before has it been awarded to a non-Confederation species. Jack stood awkwardly as Peltic pinned a gleaming medal to his shirt. The gathered aliens made sounds of approval and congratulation. Commander Drelvak was next to speak. I came to your demonstration seeking military advantages. I leave with something far more valuable understanding. The Confederation Defense Force has formally requested an alliance with Earth, not because we fear humans, but because we now understand what it means to be gravity-forged. Jack shook his head slightly. I'm just a construction worker, not a diplomat or a soldier. Which makes your accomplishments even more remarkable, Kriala said. An ordinary human did extraordinary things here. It makes us wonder what your specialists might be capable of. Susan stepped forward. Earth has approved the first phase of our alliance. We'll be sending specialists in various fields to help establish permanent exchange programs. And we have requests from 17 species to establish research outposts on Earth, Liz added. They're designing special containment suits to handle the gravity. Zotler approached Jack, looking nervous. The young engineer had become a good friend over the past months. I have something for you, too. A personal gift. He handed Jack a small data device. These are designs for a variable gravity gymnasium to be built on Earth as a cultural exchange center. The Confederation Council has approved funding for it. Jack looked at the holographic designs that appeared above the device. The facility was impressive, with sections that could simulate the gravity of different worlds. The note at the bottom, Zodler said quietly. That was my idea. Jack scrolled to the bottom of the design and read the inscription. To prepare your people for the stars, and to strengthen ours for the day we visit your world. We have much to learn from those who laugh at gravity. The docking procedures were completed, and it was time for Jack to board the shuttle. He said his goodbyes, shaking hands or making appropriate gestures for each species. Many of the aliens still found the human handshake fascinating. Will you come back? Zodler asked. Jack smiled. Count on it. Someone needs to help with that gym design. I have some ideas about what real workout equipment should look like. As Jack boarded the shuttle and strapped into his seat, he thought about how much had changed. 3 months ago, he was just a construction worker from Ohio. Now he was returning as the first human to form a genuine bond with alien species. The shuttle detached from the station and began its journey back to Earth. Jack watched through the viewport as Harmony Point grew smaller. He would miss the lighter gravity that made him feel like he could jump to the ceiling. He would miss the strange foods and strange beings that had become friends. But Earth was calling him home, with its familiar, comforting pull that had shaped his species over millions of years. The gravity that aliens feared was the embrace he had missed. Jack Miller closed his eyes as the shuttle accelerated toward Earth. He was just an ordinary human, returning to an ordinary planet with ordinary gravity. But now he understood that, to the rest of the galaxy, there was nothing ordinary about any of those things. When the young Zalaxians had doubled gravity for the human as a prank, they had accidentally discovered something important. What makes us ordinary to ourselves can make us extraordinary to others. Our everyday challenges can be someone else's impossibility. Our normal can be someone else's remarkable dot, and sometimes the strength we take for granted is exactly the strength the universe needs.